Chapter 6 Body and Soul The German War Machine. Monday, September 5, 1938, the morning quiet was broken by the great ringing bell from every church and steeple in the Nuremberg, the medieval German city on the northern edge of the Bavarian Alps. The bells pealed to welcome Adolf Hitler to the 10th of the annual National Socialist Party Congress. In 1938, a Nuremberg Party rally was the largest ever. That year, the bell also welcomed the 700,000 loyal Nazis, Nazi Party officers and stormtroopers, SS, Labor Guard units, and 80,000 Hitler youths to Nuremberg. They represented nearly every city, town, and hamlet throughout Germany. They rode by train, crowded into open trucks, and traveled by foot to pay a homage to their Führer, Adolf Hitler. It was an immense honor to attend the week-long rally, especially for the Hitler Youth. When 10-year-old Alfons Hack was chosen, he asked his grandmother, with whom he lived, for permission to go. She agreed, provided that he promised to get good grades. For a trip to Nuremberg and the chance to see the Führer in person, I would promise to enter the monastery, said Alphonse. Alphonse was amazed by the decorated city. The narrow, crooked streets were transformed to the sea of black and brown uniforms. Each day he saw colorful parade by SS stormtroopers, the Labor Guard units. The sidewalks were packed with people, said Alphonse. Occasionally, young women would rush up and plant a kiss on the cheek of the marchers. On the enormous parade ground just outside the walled city, gymnastic athletic performance took place. The German military gave a special performance, showing off its tank, machine guns, naval mine throwers, and other artillery weapons. Before all the spectators, the army fought pretend battles with guns, tanks, communication battalions, motorcyclists, and cavalry. The war game amazed everyone, especially the boys and girls. It was near feverish, week-long high that lasted into one dream, said Alphonse. On the last time of the rally, it was Hitler's turn to show up to the Führer. Dressed in a full uniform, the boys and girls marched into the immense stadium and lining up in long row on the field. On signal, they performed the military-style parade maneuvers which they had practiced in their home district as often as 4 times a week for more than a year. The drill ended in a grand finale. With a perfect precision, they marched into the intricate formation that spelled Adolf Hitler. As the Hitler Youth faced the twin granite grandstands, they stood at the parade rest, waiting for the Führer to address them. To Alphonse, the wait seemed like an eternity. But at last Hitler approached the podium. The children thundered a welcome. Sieg Heil, Sieg Heil, Sieg Heil. For the 15 minutes, Hitler spoke to the boys and girls, praising them. He told them that they were the Germany's precious guarantee for a great future, then that they were destined to the lead of the country. At the end of his speech, he raised his arms triumphantly and shouted, "You, my youth, never forget one day you will rule the world." Hearing those words, boys and girls erupted into cheers. At the top of their lungs, they shouted Sieg Heil over and over. From that moment on, I belonged to Adolf Hitler, body and soul. Alfred didn't know in at the time. In 1938, National Socialist Party Congress remarked the peacetime rally for Nazis. The next year, the rally was cancelled when Germany invaded Poland. In 1939, the Germans had been spoiling for a fight with Poland for a long time. Nazi propaganda had led the German people to believe the Poles were mistreating ethnic Germans living in Poland. But Hitler knew that he needed a better reason for war. On August 31, 1939, the SS dressed in Polish uniform and launched fake attack to German radio station in Gulewicz, Upper Silesia, the southwest Poland. The next day, Hitler lied to the German people when he announced the Polish soldier and fired upon the German army. He said that Germany was firing back in retaliation. The invasion of Poland had begun. Many German people, including Hitler youth, was jubilant at the news. The moment of the truce arrived, said the Henry Middleman, and we were sure that no one would dare nor be able to stop us. The honor promise to defend Poland. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain turned to the Soviet Union. He asked the Soviet leader Joseph Stalin to help, but Stalin was already sided with Hitler. Just 1 week before Germany invaded Poland, Hitler and Stalin had signed the Non-Aggression Pact, in which they agreed not to attack each other. They also agreed to divide Poland and the Baltic nation between them. The Nazi-Soviet Pact stunned Britain. On September 9, 1939, Britain and France declared war on Germany, but it was too late for the Poles. The Nazis were conducting new kinds of war called a blitzkrieg or lightning war. In this type of the swift warfare, the German dive bombers attacked Poland from the air to support the tank assault on the ground. And then the infantry followed the occupied territory. Within 1 month, Poland surrendered. Sophie Scholl was shocked by the Polish invasion. She wrote a letter to her boyfriend, Fritz Hartnagel, who was serving in German army. I just can't grasp that now people's lives are under the constant threat from other people. I never understand it, and I found it terrible. Don't go telling me it's for the fatherland. The victorious Nazis began to make Poland as German as possible. then evicted Polish families and gave their home and lands to German people. The Hitler Youth helped Bundeswehr medal leaders between the ages of 15 and 21 traveled to the Poland and to settle German families into their new homes. We saw of ourselves as soldiers on the home front, said Melita Mushman. Evicting Polish families were permitted to take only a cart full of belongings. The rest remains behind from German families. Some Poles tried to take more, but BDM later intervened. Sometimes I have no choice but to make a Poles unload one of the carts and then specify which thing could be loaded up and which things must be left behind, said Melita. I saw all around me looks of impotent hate and clenched fists. Melita often wondered where the evicted families went. One day she asked an SS officer. He told her that the Poles were sent to other farms and resettled in the southern portion of Poland. After that, Melita didn't wonder any longer. These answers satisfied us, she said. We never realized that there could not be possibly be enough farms standing empty for all those who had been expelled. In actuality, the Holocaust began in invasion of Poland. Many resettled Poles, especially priests, teachers, and other leaders, were executed. Other evicted Polish families were forced into the labor camps. The SS also forcibly moved Jews from the homes in the cities, towns surrounding countryside. Special SS unit massacred great numbers of evicted Jews. Other Jews were relocated, yet the thick walls and barbed wire in overcrowded city ghettos created in large cities such as Warsaw and Lodz. From there, the Jews would eventually be transported to the concentration camps when they were murdered. Meanwhile, the German war machine rolled across the land. The BDM did not know or did not want to know the fate of Jews. The girl traveled from village to village to help new German settlers get established. In the name of the fatherland, girl cooked, cleaned, and mended the ethnic German families. They cared for babies and the sick, and they tended livestock, harvested hay, grain crops, and pigs. The girl's work was soon as expanded, including the Danzig area, West Prussia, and Upper Silesia. At the home in Nazi Germany, Hitler Youth threw themselves into the work. Their fatherland became victorious as older brothers and fathers and neighbors would draft into service younger boys. And girls took up various jobs. The boy worked as a neighborhood postman, delivering a draft notices and monthly ration cards. Boys and girls work in the offices doing clerical work. To help fund the war effort, the Hitler went door to door collecting brass, copper scrap metals, razor blades, paper and bottles to recycle. They sold candles and postcards. An official collecting song had this line: "We collect bones, scrap metals, rags, false teeth, and paper bags." As winter settled in, the German radio blared out urgent appeals for winter help, a program to aid the soldier and German families living in German-occupied territories. The Hitler Youth sprang into action, collecting money, winter coats, wool sweaters, gloves, hats, socks, and blankets. One dime for the winter help program, they shouted as they went door to door, furiously rattling the tin cans. One dime, Hitler Youth had persuaded their friends and neighborhood to donate the skis and bicycle for a word effort. For the instant, the Nazis had requestioned the necessary items. 17 or Zvonko Skringer could not believe it when the government requisitioned his bicycle that his parents gave him as a birthday present. I couldn't sleep a whole night thinking about how to prevent my bicycle from being taken from me. He said, "Why should government need it, and for what purpose? Who would ride on my bicycle, my beautiful black Wanderer touring bicycle? How could a bicycle be used defending the states?" But Zvonko followed orders. The next year, he said he was called to service. "My bicycle went to the war 1 year before its owner," he said. The Hitler Youth divided neighborhoods into sections to make sure the houses was overlooked, and the Hitler Youth collected more person reputation and prevent the promotion at work. The Sophie schools. Schools' resistance to the war continued to grow. Fritz told the Sophie that the soldier needed warm gloves, sweaters, and socks. She argued with him, refusing to donate the winter help. "We have to lose the war," she told Fritz. "If we donate woolen now, we help prolong it." From the first day of war, Nazis stomped into the German people. They passed a law called the Extraordinary Radio Measures, making it legal to listen foreign radio stations. People who did were sentenced to 3 years in jails. People who listened and told others what they heard were sentenced to death. The notorious concentration camp in southern Germany, and Walter was promoted in Hitler Youth. Alfons' father was denounced the Nazis, but Alfons didn't report him. "Never consider my father dangerous to the new order," said Alfons. "I merely I merely thought him a fool who had long since left behind. After Poland fell in 1939, Nazis later planned their next military campaign over winter. The spring in 1940, in German army er, German army was prepared to strike again once more. That they had blitzkrieg and strike deep into other countries, one by one: Norway, Denmark, Holland, Luxembourg. The Belgian fell to the Nazis. On May 10 in 1940, the Nazis entered France, and 6 weeks later, the France surrendered, leaving Britain alone to fight Germany. To many, it looked as though Hitler was still conquering Europe. Hitler sent a slight invading Britain. Over the summer, the German attacked Britain from the air, bombing of British ports, radio stations, air bases, and air raids. Air raids become known as the Battle of Britain. On August 24, in 1940, the German attacked London, the capital city of Britain. Furious that German attack a civil aviation, British retaliated. Bombing Berlin the next day. The Germans were shocked, never imagining that British bomb could reach them. Hoping the bomb the British in submission, the Nazis increased their attack on London terror campaign. The Blitz, it didn't work. After several months, Hitler conceded that the British Air Force superior to Germany's, making an invasion British impossible at this time. He broke from bombing attack and turned to attention to the Soviets. In June 22, in 1941, Germany double-crossed the Russians and invaded former ally. The Blitzkrieg all over again, and Germany met a great success. A late fall in 1941, they overran Ukraine and captured a Soviet territory, but the Germans were unprepared to serve Russian winter, where the temperature fell to sub-zero. Without the adequate to the clothing and supplies, they were forced to stop. Henry Middleman, now 18 and train driver, recalled how harshly he and the German soldier treated Soviet people. Out of occupied one cottage per crew to throw the present out. His crew gave us 3 children 5 minutes scattered their belongings and ordered them out of their house. Outside of the bitterly cold through the snow, the Henry watched bewilderedly family standing on the bundle on the snow, and he looked again. They were gone. He didn't want to think about it anymore, said Henry. In December 7, 1941, Japanese attacked the United States at Flat Pearl Harbor. The United States declared war on Japan. Germany ally. In return, Hitler declared war in the United States. By the end of 1941, 38 countries were involved in a World War II, and it looked as though Hitler might win Europe. But Germany's bombing campaign against London and other British cities backfired. British and American planes wagged in a British city backfired. British and American planes wagged a brutal air assaults over Germany's retaliation. On May 30 in 1942, 1,000 British planes attacked Cologne, Germany, leaving the Rhineland city in flames. Allied bombers who hammered away at Germany industrial centers, bombing cities such as Berlin, Hamburg, Dortmund, Leipzig, and Essen. At night, German searchlight glided across the black skies. The enemy planes were spotted. Air raid sirens wailed, warning Germany to black out the windows. People rushed and shut the window and pulled down the special blackout shades. Then they ran to their cellars, bomb shelters, and underground bunkers. Hitler used a patrol to make sure everyone obeyed. The slightly glow of the light might cause an enemy pilot to unload a bomb early. Anyone careless enough to let the silver light show through was only warned once, said Alphonse. The second offense threw heavy fine occasionally rocks through the window. As the first siren wailed, the Hitler youth raced to the air raid station. They hurried to open the steel doors leading to the underground bunkers. In the bunkers, attended small children pacing out foods and milk and toys. They also turned to operating the machine and pumped fresh air into bunkers. Some boys acted like messengers, running from the bunkers if the phones went dead. We had to go on at all times, even when the bombs were falling, said the old Coster, who was 13 at the time. When the air clear siren sounded, the Hitler Youth and BDM rehoused bomb-off at least. The BDM administered a first aid and work alongside nurses in the hospitals. The boy guarded a salvage in a property from the looters. Looting was criminal, punishable by death. The looters were hanged or shot immediately without a trial. After the air raid, a dark cloud hovered over the bombed city. For days, smoke, cinders, and ashes filled filled the air. The boy fought fire caused by the booms and assisted in neighbor cleanups and recovery of bodies. "We are called to clear the streets," said Al Coster. "We stacked the bodies in 30 to 35 layers on top of each other. Victims were often buried in mass graves. Sometimes the city were bombed in broad daylight. We were bombed while we were at school," said Giza Hodgman. "I remember a cloud of dust, a wooden beam crashing the 300 screaming children. I was 8 years old at the time. The air raid through some children. Being bombed gave us feeling like we were soldiers fighting at the front," said Irmgard Burmeiser, 8-year-old when war began. "The invented games to play. After a bomb raid, we would run out into street and into yard collecting fragments and splinters from the anti-aircraft shells and trade them in the other children. The elite bombing of giant cities remain controversial subject, especially in area no military or industrial cities were targeted. "We became very bitter," said Armgard. "Bombs were dropped to helpless civilian population. Residential area where the assault target, and it was obvious the strategy had nothing to do with the military targets. Simply put, it was a sheer terror. The Nazis evacuated young children to the dangerous city, a part of the program called Sending Children to the Country of Kinderland Verkkungs, KLV. Nearly 3 million children were sent to KLV camps in the countryside. Nazi teachers, Hitler Youth and BDM leaders ran separate KLV camps for boys and girls. At the camps, the children attended classes, field work such as picking berries and digging turnips and potatoes. Parents were not compelled to send children, but those who refused were called unpatriotic. The Nazi leaders discouraged parents from visiting the camps, claiming that visits worsened the children's homesickness and strained the transport system. The alley bombing continued German cities. The duties of the Hitler Youth grew riskier, especially as the older the youth were called to military service. This left the younger boys to lead the unit in 500 to 600 boys. In January 6, in 1943, the Nazis ordered all Calfer H.J. boys older than ages 15 to man the anti-aircraft batteries and flank helpers, as they were called, tend to shoot enemy craft during air raids. Already built and handling small guns, the boy quickly learned to operate black larger than 80mm anti-craft cannon. Younger lures worked in a searchlight. Later, the boys and girls ages 13 to 15 manned the batteries. They freed the soldiers for frontline duty. An entire class of high school boys were drafted into the anti-aircraft auxiliary. I was 18. I was 16 when I got this order to report my whole class guard to the hydrogen generation plant that the Matfreskoruder. There were 180 guns to protecting the sites. From that alone, we could tell what an important enterprise it was. Because of the mathematical technique ability, Manfred was assigned to the reader. He fed the reader information incoming enemy planes and gunners. I had to pick the target, said Manfred. When they came to the 10 kilometers, the guns opened up. The work was extremely dangerous. During air raid, the young gunners were still helmeted, protected them from the razor sharp nail, and rained shell exploded. We joked in the sharp nail was so sharp, if it hit you, head came out from your toe, said Manfred. In Berlin, several flank helpers were killed. The survivors sat white-faced, numb with terror. Some sobbed. When the officer asked the wounded boy whether to suffer any pain, the boy replied, "Yes, but this is not important. Germany must be victorious." The use was also called to dig up anti-tank barriers. The barriers were seemingly endless miles of ditches 18 feet wide and 15 feet deep. The ditches prevented enemy tanks entering the German territory. The boys worked in 10-hour days. 7 days a week. They dug until their hands were raw, open blisters, and the muscle ached. But they had no time for the rest. If they as much as leaned to the shovel without permission, they did a 50 push-up in the dirt, Alphonse. Throughout the war, Alphonse was so many mangled bodies that he felt immune the horrors of war. But one day, Superior Officer shocked him, saying, "Do you know the slums tearing 10,000 Jews and subhuman every day in Poland, in Russia, Stunned, Alphonse looked at Officer. He was decorated a war hero who had been reassigned to the Hitler Youth after he had lost his arm in the battle. He despised the officer's rank and experience. Alphonse refused to believe Nazis systematically murder people, and he told him so. Furious, Officer swore at Alphonse and said, "Hasn't it occurred to you yet that you and I were serving a mass murderer?" Alphonse didn't believe Officer Adikiri say to call Adolf Hitler a mass murderer. Alphonse stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Outside were debated whether to report Officer denouncing Hitler. He decided against it. He dismissing the word crazy talk. Amounting to know more about the battle fatigue. Too late, Alphonse would learn the truth, but for now, he remains steadfast in his loyalty. He still belonged to Hitler, body and soul.